Actually, why you do the running is not normal time because there's a lot of self-control. It's unlike normal walking because when you do the walking, you can discard itself as well. It's possible to do, but when there's a lot of maintaining, which is blocking and controlling the running action, is kind of blocking. Therefore, the releasing is not completely. It's just awakening, self-awakening, physical awakening. But we have to remind by using the sentence, discard the discarding itself. The best is to do normal walk without discarding itself, without grasping for itself. This is easier. While you work, use the reminders occasionally. It's unavoidable. Uninvolved within the uninvolvement itself simultaneously while working. This is not not involved with working. Let's decrease the conflicts with working because you want to run away from work. Everyone is like that. Burdens, duties, karmic difficulties, it's all the same. Use the reminders directly because the emotions of karmic difficulties when arising, you want to run away from it. Use the conclusion of uninvolved in the uninvolvement itself directly so that you can be amidst everything in the way of uninvolved within the uninvolvement itself directly. Discard the discarding itself, uninvolved within the uninvolvement itself, not grasping for the not grasping itself. Simultaneously, in this way, the purification of extinction and emptiness will be simultaneous as well. To aim for escaping from work, there is no blessing for the work, and it cannot be used in such a way because it's not about escaping. Let's conclude exactly to the conclusion itself, my from my itself. Maybe there is a resistance which is blocking the essence of the great compassion. Instead of blessing, it's like avoiding, escaping, running away, turning the back away. Instead of blessing, there is no blessing. Therefore, the essence of the great compassion will purify the separating lines. Conclude the conclusion itself, my from my itself. This purifies the separating line. It is not my from anything, not rejecting anything. My from my itself. Otherwise, it's a kind of drawing a line, separating lines, separating nibbana from samsara. From is kind of separating line. It's not a blessing. So conclude directly through the conclusion itself. Let go of the letting go itself amidst everything. In the way of not grasping for the non-grasping itself. This will be in the way of helping through unwinding and releasing. This is not about releasing from anything. Unwinding from the unwinding itself. Not unwind from anything. Conclude directly so that there is no need to pay attention to it or anything. Conclude well because everyone has the separating line, a kind of rejection. The attempting to let go, or that attempting is a separating line, is not one with samsara. Separating oneself from samsara, separating all things from oneself. There is a separation, differentiation. This kind of line is drawn with separation. And this not creating the great compassion because it's being specific. The great compassion has no separation. It's not about something separating from something, something releasing from something. That's not the way. Let's conclude well. Conclude exactly to the conclusion, direct conclusion. Uninvolved in the uninvolvement itself. Do not uninvolved with anything because you're trying to release from something. That is not blessing. There's a lot of this kind of habits. Is the habit of the noble ones. The noble ones aiming towards releasing, getting out, aiming towards letting go, putting down. That is the habit of the noble ones. It is not the essence of the great compassion from the great perfection, the Maha Bharami. Let's discard the habit of the noble one so we can proceed altogether with blessing. To let go of this and that, put down this and that. That is the habit of taking the liberation, taking the putting down, taking the letting go. That is a kind of liberation for the sake of oneself, not helping samsara. Then one have to learn the great compassion again. It's a waste of time, too many steps. Liberation and help through liberation can happen. Therefore, we need to use reminders that purify themselves. Auto-purification in terminologies. Let go of the letting go itself. Don't put down anything. Put down the putting down itself instead. Use new terminologies. Just shift a little bit. Put down the putting down itself is not about putting down anything. It's not an act. When the noble ones shift towards the essence of the great compassion, the noble ones will discard being noble ones, entering the essence of the great compassion, the Mahasunyata Nibbana, boundlessness. It's not stuck with just letting go or not letting go. There is no boundaries. It's not about discarding or not discarding anything, getting over or not getting over anything. This is entering the essence of the great compassion. That which has nothing to do with letting go or not letting go, discarding or not discarding. That which has nothing to do with grasping or not grasping. Everything is from not grasping for the non-grasping itself, simultaneously proceeding. Each sentence of terminologies, once you listen to, when you hear, and totally Nibbana, which sentence that purifying samsara through Nibbana. For example, that which has nothing to do with letting go or not letting go, that is pure Nibbana directly. But there is the need to proceed with the great compassion. Furthermore, you can use it, but it's not in preference because it's pure Nibbana. It's not yet for samsara. With everything, not grasping for the non-grasping itself, there is the power to stimulate the proceeding with great compassion. With everything, my from my itself. That which has nothing to do with my or not my, that is pure Nibbana. That which has nothing to do with grasping or not grasping, this is purely Nibbana, end of path. But there is not yet great compassion for samsara. Therefore, each sentence reflects the essence of Nibbana purely, or the essence of the great compassion. Nibbana to purify samsara, Nibbana for blessing. Long Paul knows this because this has been said by himself. which sentence is working for blessing, which sentence is pure nibbana. For example, as it is, อยู่แล้ว that is just as it is. It's not coming or going anywhere. It's not moving. It's not proceeding towards the blessing. ไม่ as it is, emptiness as it is. In the end, it's just as it is. It's not going anywhere. There is no proceeding of the great compassion. It doesn't work. That kind of terminologies should not be used. Use terminologies that ends and helping through ending, cutting deluded knowing and help through cutting deluded knowing simultaneously. We have to refine the usage of terminologies and sentences that total cutting for samsara to create Buddha land within samsara. We need instruments that are thorough. We need to know which terminologies have what kind of effects, purely nibbana or creating path to the enlightenment or with great compassion for samsara. We need to know the effects. For example, those who are earnestly trying to let go, you can listen to this, that which has nothing to do with liberating or not liberating, letting go or not letting go. This is nibbana conclusion for all the earnesty. But one have to hear the sentence of the great compassion. Furthermore, not just ending only there. Helping through ending is for samsara. That which has nothing to do with my or not my has to be proceeded with everything simultaneously. That which has nothing to do with my or not my proceeded with everything simultaneously. This will be simultaneous purification of the emptiness with everything. Shift the way to use terminologies thoroughly. Each terminology has certain kind of effect. And what kind of effect? The worldly usage of terminologies, they are grasping for terminologies. Therefore, they become samudai in themselves. The effect of samudai is the suffering, which is samsara, which is the suffering. Each sentence of terminology, you have to see if it's gonna be taken as samsara. It must be hear it, and ending is right there. You have to see it. My from my itself is already so great. Normally, it's my from something, from it, from you, from me. My from this, my from that. That is not my from my itself. That is kind of discarding from something. Therefore, my from my itself is already graceful. Cut and cutting is simultaneous. Helping through cutting is simultaneously. You can always remind this kind of sentences. Uninvolved within the uninvolvement itself simultaneously. You can use these sentences, helping through unwinding and releasing altogether. The separating line is a kind of suffering, just like giving differentiations, delusively separating, delusively differentiating by oneself. Therefore, it's suffering. Not attached to something is kind of separating all by oneself delusively. Everything is not attached to itself naturally. When you are not attached to something, it's like you're following one's own deluded point of view, trying to not attach it. Let's conclude again. Not attached to the non-attachment itself is not attached to it. Not attached to the non-attachment itself instead. Let's conclude again. Not attached to the non-attachment itself has no separating line between samsara and nibbana. It will be purifying altogether simultaneously. It will be great compassion that is there altogether in balance. Use the reminders that purify samsara within and without simultaneously and more often. Otherwise, one will just return to be in stillness, indifference, ordinariness. This is the habit of mindfulness, concentration, meditative power, and equanimity. When using reminders, it will release out from the releasing itself, unwind from the unwinding itself. This is brightening out. Otherwise, one will just return to maintain and sustain the stillness, indifference, and equanimity, which has been accumulated by practicing since the past, always grasping for the sake of oneself. That is the kind of karmic difficulty. Therefore, use the reminders constantly. It will purify the karmic difficulties in mindfulness, concentration, meditative power, special insights, karmic difficulties in Dhamma, within equanimity. The worldly think that it is good, it looks good, but it's a kind of difficulties. It creates realms of existence, identifying something within something, significance and meanings. That's why we need to let go of the letting go itself, because it's not about anything and anything, not about anything in anything, not about anything within yes or not yes, yes or no. Neither is about that. Those who have karmic difficulties in whatever ways will be purified. Any types of karmic difficulties in Dhamma will be purified. So use the reminders that purify themselves constantly. With everything is from not grasping for the non-grasping itself, mind from mind itself. Everything is from not attached to the non-attachment itself. Use the reminders that have auto-purification. This will affect simultaneous purification altogether. They influence everything simultaneously, automatically, naturally. This is not about purifying it. That is just side effect. The true purification is purifying the purification itself. Therefore, it purifies everything simultaneously. The reminders of self-purification or auto-purification in the reminders cut through the cutting itself. Auto-cutting. Mind from mind itself is auto-cutting. Then will affect in the way that have cutting for everything simultaneously, naturally. The habit is in all realms of existence. They have habits within oneself. karmic habits. That is using something as a refuge, as an instrument to dwell in, which is actually the delusive attachment. What is it that is used to bind the mind? Actually, the mind is anatta. There is no substantial in itself. It's like one is looking for somewhere for the delusive attachment to hold on to, but that's not the mind. It is the delusive attachment, not the mind. Don't find somewhere for the mind to dwell in, because it doesn't look for somewhere to hold on to either. It's coming and going, arising and disappearing. It's anatta. The mind is anatta. It doesn't grasp for itself, but we are deludedly grasping for the mind by one's own delusion, trying to find somewhere to bind the mind. This is samsara that is circling, is create realms of existence. The mind is not buffalo to find somewhere to hold on to.